It was a muggy Saturday morning in Augusta, Georgia, the kind where the air clung to your skin and the silence felt heavier than the heat. Outside the red brick church on Peach Orchard Road, black cars lined the street, their polished surfaces reflecting the weak flutter of flags at half-mast. Mourners gathered in hushed clusters, dressed in somber suits and pressed dresses, their whispers barely stirring the stillness. The funeral was for Staff Sergeant Daniel Harper, killed in action in Afghanistan 3 weeks earlier. But as the crowd shuffled toward the church doors, an older woman approached the gate, her steps slow and deliberate, clutching a single red carnation. Her name was Clara Thompson, 78 years old, and what happened next would unravel a story no one in that church could have predicted. Clara's coat was faded, her hands weathered from years of hard work, but her eyes held a quiet strength. She didn't expect a warm welcome. She wasn't family by blood, but she hadn't anticipated the cold rejection either. Before she could reach the church steps, a man in a gray suit blocked her path. He had a tight jaw and the air of someone following orders to the letter. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but unyielding, "this service is private. Family only." Clara blinked, her grip tightening on the carnation. "Private?" she repeated, as if testing the word. He nodded. "Family only. I'm sorry." She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line, and turned away. But behind her calm facade, a familiar ache stirred the pain of being unseen, dismissed in a moment that should have honored her presence most. As Clara retreated down the sidewalk, past the sleek cars and murmuring mourners, a few heads turned. A woman in a black hat whispered to her husband, "Who's that?" He shrugged. "Probably got the wrong church." Clara heard them, but kept walking, her legs trembling until she paused at the corner to steady herself. She wasn't confused. She was erased. For 48 years, she'd lived in the same modest apartment on Telfair Street, scrubbing floors at the hospital by night and raising other people's children by day. Daniel wasn't just a neighbor's boy, it was hers in every way that mattered. She'd bandaged his scraped knees, taught him to tie his shoes, and held him when his father walked out for good. But to the man at the gate, she was just an old woman with a flower and no claim to the name on the program. Then, someone noticed her. Private Marcus Reed, late to the service, still adjusting his dress uniform, stood near the church's side entrance. His mother had ironed his jacket the night before, saying, "This uniform carries more than you, son." He hadn't understood until now. Marcus had met Daniel Harper only once, during a chaotic firefight overseas. Daniel's quick thinking had saved Marcus and 2 others, a debt Marcus carried like a weight. He didn't know Daniel's family or his past, but he knew he owed the man in that flag-draped casket. As his eyes scanned the crowd, they landed on Clara, walking away, her posture proud but burdened. Something clicked. He knew her. Back when Marcus was 9, his mother worked long shifts at a diner downtown. Clara had stepped in, feeding him, ironing his shirts, and helping him sound out words when reading felt impossible. She'd always talk about Daniel, how he was smart, kind, quiet, but strong. Marcus had been jealous, thinking Clara favored Daniel, but her love stretched to cover them both. Now, seeing her turned away, his chest tightened. He pushed through the crowd, his boots hitting the pavement with purpose. "Miss Clara," he called. She stopped, turning slowly. When she saw him, her shoulders softened. "Marcus," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's me, ma'am," he said, closing the distance. "You got tall," she said, a faint smile breaking through. He chuckled. "You said I would. Said I had long legs even when I was little." Marcus glanced at the church. "They turn you away?" Clara nodded, her tone almost apologetic. "Said it's for family." His jaw clenched. "You're coming with me." She hesitated. "I don't want trouble." Marcus met her eyes. "You made Daniel who he was. If you're not family, who is?" Without waiting, he offered his arm. Clara paused, then looped her hand through his elbow, the carnation still in her other hand. Together, they walked back to the church. Inside, the organ hummed softly, and Daniel's mother, Ruth Harper, sat rigid in the front pew, flanked by relatives. She glanced up as Marcus entered, then froze when she saw Clara. An usher moved to intercept them, but Marcus raised a hand. "She belongs here," he said, loud enough for heads to turn. Murmurs rippled through the pews. Clara stood quietly, her eyes on the casket, but Marcus wasn't done. He stepped forward, facing the crowd. "Y'all don't know who this woman is," he said, voice steady but sharp. "If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. Neither would Daniel." The room stilled. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Marcus continued. When I was a kid, my mom worked late. Miss Clara fed me, kept me out of trouble. She did the same for Daniel, cooked his meals, walked him to school, sat with him when his dad left. She was there when he lost his way and when he found it again. You call this a private service? She's more family than most of us. A man in the back, Daniel's cousin, spoke up. I don't remember her. If she was so close, why didn't we know? Marcus didn't flinch. Maybe you didn't ask. Ruth turned in her pew, her eyes red. Clara, she whispered. Clara nodded. It's me, Ruth. Recognition dawned, heavy and raw. Ruth stood, her knees wobbling. I didn't know you were here, she said. I just wanted to leave a flower, Clara replied softly. Ruth's voice broke. Daniel used to say your peach pie was better than mine. He'd sneak seconds when he thought I wasn't looking. Clara smiled faintly. He hid his carrots under the plate, too. Ruth laughed, then sobbed. You were always there. I was too tired to see it. She reached for Clara's hand. Sit with me, please. Clara hesitated, then nodded, taking a seat beside Ruth. The church exhaled, the tension easing but not gone. Clara's mind drifted as the preacher spoke of sacrifice and honor. She saw Daniel at 5, soaked from rain, sitting by her radiator after a neighbor forgot to walk him home. She dried his feet, wrapped him in a blanket, and said, You matter. He'd cried then, calling her Grammy from that day on. She went to his school plays, cheered at his soccer games, and helped him write his first letter to the Army recruiter. When he deployed, his letters arrived like clockwork, always starting with Dear Grammy and ending with Tell everyone I'm okay, especially you. The last one came 2 weeks before the knock on her door, a chaplain and a flag, folded sharp enough to cut. The preacher paused, holding up a sealed letter. Daniel left this, he said. It wasn't addressed, but I think we know who it's for. He read aloud, If I don't make it, don't cry too long. I lived how I wanted, went where I was needed. The person who taught me to stand tall, to care, to never back down, she's not wearing medals. She's got tired feet and a voice that made me feel safe. I hope she knows I carried her with me. I love you, Grammy. Thank you for being my home. Clara took the letter, her hand steady, as the room fell silent with reverence. After the service, people approached Clara, neighbors, soldiers, a choir member who'd read Daniel's journals praising her strength. The usher who'd turned her away muttered an apology. You know now, Clara said, her voice kind but firm. Marcus offered to drive her home, but she waved him off. My legs still work. So they walked Clara, Ruth, and Marcus to her apartment on Telfair Street. Inside, Clara placed the letter and Daniel's silver star in a wooden box with old drawings and a key he'd once lost. Then she pulled out another letter, tucked in a shoebox, and handed it to Marcus. Read it, she said. He did, voice thick. Dear Grammy, if I'm gone, don't sit alone. Don't let them forget you. You were my start, and I carried your voice everywhere. You taught me that strong doesn't mean loud, and love doesn't need a name tag. Tell them you raised a man who tried, who remembered his roots. Cry proud, Grammy. I'll bring your sweet tea when I see you again. Clara smiled, stubborn to the end. That evening, alone, Clara sat by her window, the letter on her lap. She'd given quietly for decades, meals, time, love, never asking for thanks. Yet Daniel had seen her, and through Marcus, so had the world. The next week, she volunteered to read to kindergartners. A local paper ran a story, Grammy Clara Wilson, the heart behind a hero. Her name was known now, her story no longer silent. The lesson was clear. Love doesn't need a title, and family isn't just blood. The hands that shape a life leave prints that last forever. Clara leaned back, whispering, I told you I'd outlive you, boy. Her smile lingered, the carnation in a vase beside her. What do you think of Clara's story? Should she have fought harder to be recognized, or was her quiet strength enough? How do you view the injustice she faced, and what does it say about the violence subtle or over in our lives? Share your thoughts in the comments. Take a stand, and let's hear your voice.